Fintech Chatter, brought to you by Tier 1 People, leaders in Fintech executive search. Welcome to Fintech Chatter, the show where Fintech leaders join me for a chat. I'm your host, Dexter Cousins, and in 2022, I'm committed to showcasing the next wave of Aussie Fintech founders. Show your support and help us spread the word with a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple, and head over to Fintech Chatter TV on YouTube and give us a like and subscribe. Now on to today's guest. Dan Silver is co-founder of Stake, a global gateway to investing. Stake was founded in 2017 to give Australians seamless access to US stocks at $0 brokerage. After expanding to New Zealand, Brazil, and the UK with that offering, Stake also launched an ASX platform with $3 CHESS-sponsored trades. Crypto investing is next, slated to come later this year. It's been remarkable to watch Dan on his journey, and hopefully an inspiring example for anyone frustrated with corporate life and busting to create their own startup. Dan, welcome to the show.
Dexter, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Mate, it's awesome to have you with me because you and I kind of go back a long time. We've known each other probably about a decade, when I used to hassle you about accounting and finance jobs back in the day. And it's incredible to see what you've done with Stake. And I'm kind of super chuffed that we're finally sitting down with each other so I can share the story with all of our followers and our listeners and our subscribers. Yeah. So welcome.
Good. Thank you. And I wouldn't say I started Stake just because you couldn't find me the role, but it's good to be.
Mate,
it's good to
the
be.
shit I was going on here with hardly groundbreaking, but it's great to see that both you and I have moved on from those days.
Exactly right.
And kind of where we've got to now. But look, I think it is it's a really nice segue into the journey because it is pretty remarkable. I mean, what you and the other founders have done and kind of the origins of where you've come from. And I think, look, a really inspiring story for a lot of people that listen to the show who, they might be working in an insurance company or a bank or some other incumbent, dreaming of creating their own fintech. And here you are, somebody who's actually done that. So it's, I'm just super pumped to be sharing this story with people. So probably a good place to start is to tell people about Stake.
Yeah, sure. So Stake is an online brokerage, financial services business that provides seamless and immersive experience for people to access the financial markets. So currently people can go and buy and sell shares that are listed in the US markets and the Aussie markets. And we're also building out more products and services that we're going to enrich the experience for people who want to go and, as their financial journey improves over time, that we can support that journey.
Awesome. So how long has Stake been going for?
So been in market about 5 years, and about 6 years since we started the business. And it's really been it's been quite a good journey, been exciting along the way, been a lot of ups and downs. But we've always stayed true to that sort of initial belief that we're really focused on, from a customer perspective, how do they go and access the markets in a way they haven't been able to before. So it may well have been, if you look back 5 years, the ability for people when we launched our US platform to start, there was really nowhere else that you could do so in a seamless, cost-effective way. And we sort of approached it to be like, well, it shouldn't be that way. And we've taken that approach both in terms of our US product, but everything we do is like, how do we actually go and make it better? Because our customers shouldn't have to settle for what's currently out there.
So where did the origins kind of for the business come about? How did it all start?
Yeah, so I founded the business with Matt, a friend from back in the day. And so he's a market making options trader from his previous guys, and really spent a lot of time working in the US. And when he came back to Australia from the US, just really didn't understand with the advent of technology, why can Australians not get the same access to opportunities that people in the US could? And that really stood for anybody outside the US. So in the US, there was already ability to go and trade for zero commission, for example, on thousands of securities. Whereas in Australia, if you wanted to go and access any investment opportunity that outside of these boundaries, everything became extremely expensive, extremely difficult. And you generally needed to deal with multiple intermediaries to go and deliver it. And so we really just looked at that and said, well, surely there's a better way. Now, we didn't come from a technology perspective. We came from sort of more markets or finance side. And we're like, well, we'll find a way to make it work. So that was really the start, where we saw a first-hand challenge, and we realized that it wasn't just a sort of quite subjective, it was in the market. But also that often people don't realize it's a challenge until you really sort of dig and you provide access to the opportunity for them to go and explore those markets that otherwise they wouldn't have really known about. So that's it. It's not just looking at the size of the opportunity 5 years ago. Anybody would have said to us, well, you can go and get 5% of the current market share of people investing outside. No, it was like, well, we actually see that people would diversify their investments across multiple asset classes over time as they take more control of their finances, which we saw as a general trend, which has come true as well. And that we wanted to be a key part to that, but we had to earn the right to do that as well as being able to solve the problems.
One of the things that we hear and certainly I hear all the time is this myth that you can't somehow found fintech or a tech startup without having a tech founder. And how did you overcome that challenge of raising investment, but also getting credibility as well as solving the technical problems that you had to solve in order to make Stake a success?
Sure. So we did there was a tech founder, John, who was with us at the time.
Right.
And he did an amazing job to really get us off the ground, to work with us to go and deliver the technical solution for the problem that we were trying to solve. So I agree. You can't really do it without somebody with a seat at the table. And really, it's really just we were lucky to have him.
How did you find John?
Just through network, really. And it's just
there's a lot of people are going to be listening to this going, what?
Really? What network? Where is it? How do you do it?
How do you do it?
But it's a lot of it's timing. But I think that's a really key point. Is that none of this is possible without understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. But also, just regardless of that, you want to have people that you can fire things off and actually be on the journey with. Like it's a pretty lonely place. Like when you're trying to, going up against. Whether it's partners, whether it's like challenges with distribution, whether it's like dozens and dozens of things, you actually need to have that resilience. But there's only so much resilience any one person can have, and you really need to have that mutual skill set and that trust between different parties. Yeah. So, but we're fortunate that, as I said, I knew Matt from back in the day. We sort of had implicit trust between us, and then we sort of got to know John pretty well early on.
And kind of the journey from those early days, like what would you say were the biggest challenges that you had to overcome, that kind of first 12, 18 months?
Customers, probably a big one. I suppose even before you get customers, it's just like being able to get to market. Yeah. We got to market, it took us about 12 months from when we sort of formed the company to when we onboarded our first customer, which at the time felt a really long time. With hindsight, probably quite quick to do all of that. I think as well, just like working through all the regulatory stuff and like making, and also getting partners across the line. It's a big challenge to have to go and piece all of that together. You can do it on paper and you can say this is conceptually how it works, but then having to go and get agreements with different parties and stuff. So I suppose even just getting to market was a big win, but ultimately it's then just getting scale. Yeah. Because everything, customers solve everything, right? Like you just. I remember, back in the day when we were in our first office, actually just up the road on Ken Street, And like every time we'd have a new customer that would sign up, we'd sort of like bang the table just to do that. And it's just those things that stay with you when you remember those days when every single customer, we're like, okay, who are they? Where are they from? What's going on? Like what feedback can we get to go and make things better? And it's interesting, like the level of, I suppose, iteration you do when you're a really small team, when you're that customer centric and really small. You feel like sometimes you move much quicker than even where you are today, where you've got like big team decentralized. So, that's one of the challenges with scaling. But at the time, the biggest challenge was, I suppose, number one, getting to market, and, getting everybody across the line to go and make sure that we can actually launch this thing. But then it's ultimately just customers. Just how do you go and get customers and give them what they want?
So the skill set and background that you've got, finance and accounting, it's not really kind of renowned for, having, I guess providing somebody with the skills and expertise to go out there and actually grow a business, win customers, marketing. How did you kind of go about that whole process of growing the business and actually doing the stuff that you have to do to win customers?
Yeah. You do whatever it takes. But you're right, like it's not something that I had from my corporate days. From before that, I did a bit in, prior to, but that was like many years ago. You sort of learn as you go, and you realize that like it's the desire to make this a success, that it's only going to be, you've got to have like that, I suppose, that EQ to understand what's going to make it successful. And if you go and sit in a box and just go and say, well, this is what we're going to go and build and this is what's going to evolve, then you're not going to be that successful. So there's that part. It wasn't something that like wasn't just automatically came naturally. I was like, but you just evolved with it. And also it's like the people you bring around. So that wasn't necessarily my like first in the early days. Everyone's got to do it, but I was probably more on the sort of making sure everything fitted together.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm still going out and speaking to customers as well. So I suppose it just becomes everybody's primary job anyway.
Yeah. How did the kind of the fact that you were solving a problem that you were experiencing yourself play into you kind of then being able to go out and do the customer acquisition stuff and the sales stuff and the marketing stuff?
I think if you just stay true to what you're trying to solve, and that you've actually got some, you've got whether it's a value proposition, mission statement that actually has depth to it around what the culture you're trying to build and what the problem is, that by doing that and anchoring everything to that, then it brings you back to the center every time as well. And that's what we found. What we found good is that if you've got to make a decision about everything without having an overarching principle, then you're never going to go, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
You actually need to say, well, and that's the only way to scale as well, but that's separate down the track. But ultimately it's like, to know we're trying to provide, like, for example, like, institutional access for retail investors and like seamless and immersive experience. It sort of it drives a lot of the decision-making process along the way. So you're not then, you see shiny toys out in the market. You're not always just saying, well, we've got to go and build that, or we've got to go and we got to understand it and we've got to go and respect it. But it doesn't mean it's necessarily right for stake or our customers.
Yeah. So I want to kind of fast forward now a bit, because this really puts into context, I think, the earlier journey. And that is where you're at now, because, there was a massive announcement earlier this year. I'll let you share that with everybody because it's pretty significant. But the last funding round that you had, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So, we were fortunate enough to close a Series A round of $90 million.
Series A, 90 mil. Wow.
Yeah, and that was over both 2021 and 2022.
Yeah.
But in total, it was 90. And that was, that was reflective of the growth that we've seen over the past few years, but especially in the lead up to, I suppose, in the 2021 calendar year and or 18 months over that period, as well as as well as the, I suppose the culture we've got, the brand that we've built, and the future potential that we've got here to go and build out like a significant player within wealth management.
Yeah. 6 years to get to a Series A, it's kind of, that's a fair amount of time. What do you think, were the benefits of taking your time to get to that point rather than going out and trying to kind of, raise early and, kind of do it the way that typically, most startups would go about growing the business?
So I suppose Matt and I were a bit old school in that we want to make sure that we're
the accountant in you.
You got like ultimately, you bring revenue in and you got expenses, and you want to make sure that you can, to some extent, balance things up. And for a number of years, when we started the business, we generated revenue on day one, so we knew how important it was for us to go and have that model. So that was the first thing. And what we did is we were fortunate that we had sort of support from our friends and family to back us in those early days. Yeah. But really it was just, how do we go and generate revenue and spend according to that, and make sure that we're not, that we can live a bit hand to mouth, really. And we were comfortable with that, because that was the way that, that's the way we wanted to approach things. But also we were seeing it it was the sensible way to do it. So until we get absolute clear product market fits, we want to make sure that we're in survival mode. We've got key stakeholders that we need to support and manage, whether they're our customers, whether they're our employees, whether they're our partners, or whether our shareholders. And we want to make sure that we're always doing the right thing for those key stakeholders. And so that was our approach from day one. And that just meant that we had, I'd say it wasn't frugal, but it just meant that we were just reinvesting what we felt we could.
Yeah.
And then when we started to see that we were getting some level of scale in, it was then time to go and invest. And so that's how we sort of been approaching it. It's been a bit gradual. It may seem that, great, we've got this big number that's sort of come in the doors in the last 12 months, but ultimately it's just been I suppose 4 or 5 years to get up to that point.
Yeah. Now correct me here, but you kind of went UK pretty early as well. Is that right?
Yep.
What was the thinking behind that?
So when we started the business, it was the problem that we saw was a global problem, where people were not engaged with their finances. For people who wanted to be, people who are like, there may be the people that the roles that we started talking about on those sort of salaries, that they wanted to get more involved in the markets, but they just didn't know where to turn. They didn't know how to do it, but they were confident in their own ability to go and do that. And that was a problem there's a global problem. It's not just Australia.
Yeah.
So we really saw it to be, how do we go and scale the business into different markets? So, and originally it was just for people to access the US market. So it was really for people outside the US to access the US.
That's how I became a customer, actually. Yeah, it was exactly that. I think it's a really kind of crucial point that you make, right? Because if I look at pretty much every business that I've talked to or worked with and how they've been successful, it started off with one thing. We're kind of that to that. Yeah. So, that cohort that you talked about, of the professional who wants to invest and access US shares, it's kind of, that's the beginning of what then becomes a bigger thing.
Exactly. So, and that was always the way. It was just focused there for many years, and just make it a most amazing experience. And that was it. Like, how do we go deep on that value exchange?
Yeah. So what was the kind of point where you then figured, hey, now we've earned the right to go and do more stuff? So you've just launched a new product recently as well. What was the point where you went, okay, now we kind of know what this is and what the big vision is, and we kind of now need to go and do, offer new products, go after new markets.
Yeah. So in terms of going to new markets, it was going internationally was always on the roadmap from the very start, and we've been doing that for probably a couple of years now. Where we launched in New Zealand, and we've got a very a really great business over there, and a really strong loyal customer base.
Yeah.
for Stake over in New Zealand as well.
Well, here's a bit of kudos for you. So I was talking to a friend of mine who lives in New Zealand, and we're catching up. We haven't seen each other for a long time, and I mentioned, hey, I've got to shoot off and do a podcast. And he asked who with, and I said Stake, and he said, oh yeah, I know those guys. So there you go, right?
There you go. And I didn't just plod him just in the
no.
So
like it's a genuine plug, right?
Good.
So it's but it goes to show, the kind of strength of the brand, right?
Yeah. No, that's good to hear, actually. But in terms of validation for us to go into other markets and expand and really invest significantly into the business, I suppose we had there's 2 points that it probably could have diverged in different ways, which was probably the start of COVID.
Yeah.
And then at the start of February 2021. So really at the start of COVID, where everything's on the table, who knows what's going to happen. Really, it was very uncertain for every business, really. And we were in a fortunate position that actually it had a positive impact on our business, in that you got people at home, there's money being plowed into the economy, and people are looking to how do they go and take more control of their finances. So that was really the first time that we had like a real step change in mindset within the business, to be like, well, actually there could be something massive here, because we're getting huge customer engagement at a time when when a lot of people were looking to build out new skills and take more control. So that was the first time. And then really and that was a sort of continued growth over the course of 2020. And then really at the start of 2021, there was an acceleration of that.
Yeah.
And so those were the real moments. And again, where you really look at it and go, well, you've got, in terms of what the opportunity is, it's gone from being something that we believe is a really big opportunity, and our customers validate that, to actually being, well, there's actually a massive step change in addressable market.
Yeah.
Which we're, as I said, we're fortunate about, but again, we see it as a real net positive for the economy, for people to be able, we're giving them the vehicle so that they can actually go and access opportunities that otherwise they wouldn't have been able to. Yeah. And so those are probably the 2 moments.
So we've seen this year, kind of polar opposite the last year, crash in the markets. How's that impacted your business, and kind of how are you navigating through that?
Yeah. So there's been obviously the market has fallen, stock market's fallen. It's resulted in some people being far more engaged, but a lot more people being less engaged with it. And I think that's only natural when you're going through the cycle that we've been, I suppose, over the past 10 years, and now suddenly what's happened in the past 6 months. So for us, it's normal, natural. It's, what you've got to do is you've got to build a business for the long term that can ride out any cycle. Yeah. And so that means that you've got to provide the strength, stability, and trust with your customer base to ensure that you're going to be around in the next 1, 3, 25 years, number one. And number two, to just make sure that your business model can support the current environment. And I also think what's important is that we've always had a view that that we're not just that things will turn. And so in terms of the products that we provide access to, it's not, we've obviously got a lot of customers who are in the technology growth stocks in the US, but we've also got ways that people can trade other securities, whether it's, whether it's trading volatility or going short the market. You can actually do that through certain securities on Stake as well. Now, that's not for everybody, but it shows that we've always had this idea that the products that we want to offer should not be limited by just, by having a view. We provide access to the markets.
Yeah.
So there's a number of people that have been able to go and so that's really how we sort of want to frame it, and that's this level of access that we provide.
Cool. So you raised the Series A 90 million earlier this year. What's that meant for the growth of the business, and where you at now in terms of number of people, number of users, etc.?
Yeah. So we've got over 500,000 customers on the platform globally, with Australia being by far our largest market, and your friend in New Zealand, they're our number 2 market. And then we've got, in Australia, we've got about over 90 staff, and globally we've got about 130. And we've got staff in UK, New Zealand, and also in Brazil.
Right. Why Brazil?
So Brazil. So first of all, we've got customers in Brazil as well. So customers who go and buy and sell shares in the US market. And we also, what we wanted is we provide 24/5 access to the market.
Right.
And we sort of need that with US and ASX, that we can provide that level of support, whether it's customer service support, whether it's technology support, all throughout the trading days of Australia or the US. And so to do that, we need to have a service center on a similar time zone. So that's worked out really well for us, where we've got some really great talent and people over in the Brazil market, and work very closely with our team here.
Now, talking about talent, as I mentioned earlier, I used to hassle you chase you about accounting and finance jobs. And look, one of the things that I think is really has I wouldn't say opened my mind, because I kind of knew this intuitively anyway, but since I shifted to Fintech maybe 7-8 years ago, has been the kind of how you then revise how you look at talent, and what are the kind of behaviors and the attributes that you then assess in order for you to kind of determine whether somebody is the top tier of talent or not. And what really strikes me is kind of when I look at a corporate environment, it's almost like the antithesis of the things that you look for in a fintech startup. And it's kind of looking at yourself and a lot of other people in my network who have worked in those corporate environments, were never an exec. Maybe he's in a management role or a team manager where you'd have a few direct reports. It's really kind of, to me, kind of fascinating to see the journey that you go on, right? And like how you've evolved as a leader, and how you've kind of, these kind of natural talents that you had that weren't being recognized or embraced or kind of nurtured in a corporate environment, then all of a sudden just get unleashed, right? And I kind of wonder, what the experience is from your side of having gone through that journey, and what you've learned about yourself.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. I suppose I enjoyed my time in corporate. I learned a huge amount. I spent 12 years or so from when I arrived in Australia to in that whole period. And I felt challenged. I enjoyed it, but it got to a point when I knew that I wanted to do my own thing. And so it was, I don't know what was the trigger point for that. I can't put my finger on that.
It's probably the shit jobs that I kept calling you about. Is this really where my future lies?
I mean, to be honest, it was like I wanted to do more. I wanted to have that sense of achievement that I was actually giving something a go, and whether it was successful or not I didn't want to die trying. Just like querying whether it was going to be the thing. So, and as I said, I was fortunate that I had the people around me when we started the business that do it. I think the idea was great, but I think it's a lot about the people you've got surrounding you as well. So I think we probably could have come up with half a dozen ideas that could have been as successful with that group of people. That's just the reality.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of what I've learned along the way, I think it's that what I really like, as I said, we've got this really clear idea about what it means to be at stake and what it means to what we're providing for customers. Like, and that just anchors everything we do. So like when like our customers are looking to get ahead in the world, they're looking to, they may be, and they're looking to get into the market. They're looking to challenge themselves with a new skill or with this, like, and they see the markets as a friend, as something that they can actually go and crack or go and talk about with their friends and go and share, and they see it as part of their identity. And that's really, if you extend that to our staff, that's a core attribute that we look for. Now, whether it's the markets that they do, so a lot of people are really heavily involved in the markets that work for us as well. But notwithstanding that, there are people who say, I want an environment where I've got clear accountability. I've got the ability to go and make an impact and make a difference. And I feel a huge amount of value attached to that. So, and that again, it's like, we want to make sure that as leaders that we're staying very true to that with our staff as well. And so that's what, when people come into work, that's what they're going to get. They're going to get that. And it's going to be, I'll be honest, it's like, it's not for everybody. There's a lot of people that are extremely smart and extremely successful that struggle to work in an environment without, you know, the same level of structures and processes and to some extent bureaucracy. And that we will unapologetically just say, well, that's what we stand for. And it's not a reflection on you. It's not a reflection on us. It's just a reflection on what constitutes success. But the people that do thrive within that level of autonomy and that level of drive and challenge, they can go and 2x, 5x, 10x themselves beyond their wildest dreams. And that's what I love seeing.
Well, I'll kind of share a personal experience, which I think then contrasts, very different, to the environment that you've come from. And I remember this was maybe about 4 or 5 years back, really involved with InsurTech Australia. And one of the incumbent insurers was also heavily involved. And, they were investing a lot of money in customer experience and a lot of money in startups. And, it was very commendable what they were doing. But I remember getting my kind of insurance policy renewal, and I got stung with like a $300 increase for a car that was a year old and had never had any crashes and any accidents. And I couldn't understand it. And I was asking people that work at this place, like, how is this possible? You keep telling me about telematics and you got all these ways of, and the kind of answer was, hey, well, that's the actuaries, right? And here's why, because there's more younger people having accidents. And what was really kind of prevalent to that was that all of these people really cared about what they were doing. They were really passionate about the industry. They were really passionate about customers. But the structure and the kind of small level of accountability that they had just meant that they were never, ever able to deliver on that promise. And I think this is what's kind of, you've touched on it, right, is that these environments are not for everyone. In fact, my kind of data suggests for about 10% of the workforce who can come in and really be successful in this environment and enjoy it and thrive. And I think the reason for that is it's the levels of accountability, right? And that comes with a lot of stress, right? And a lot of pressure that you don't get in a corporate. You get the bureaucracy, yeah, sure, but you don't get that level of having to deliver, not just for your customers, but your colleagues, the founders, your investors. It's kind of intense, right?
Yeah. And that point about the insurance, that's very true. It's like every single component of the business is the product and the experience. So whether you're writing a line of code, or you're on a marketing campaign, or you're responding to a query from a customer, or you're whatever it is, or you're facilitating money movement or a trade or whatever, everything is all about the whole experience, the holistic experience at stake, and everything needs to be seamless. And that's the challenge as you scale, but it's also the beauty of it.
Yeah.
If you can really instill that in the business, that every single touch point, every single person understands how their role fits into the overall piece, and that they're confident that other people are pulling their weights because everything's like anchored to a philosophy.
Yeah. Now we get some seriously outstanding talent listening to this show. If there's anybody that is listening out there that kind of likes the sound of steak, what would you say are the kind of the qualities or the other kind of types of people that typically come in and are successful in your business, Dan?
So I think the people that are most successful are those. So first of all, they've got to be generally extremely smart in the first place anyway. But we generally find that with most applications, regardless. But they've got to have a very clear idea about how that role fits in with the customer. So what I would just mentioned around if you're responding to a ticket or you're facilitating money flows or writing code, like how will this portray to a customer, and do I fully understand the implications of the every little decision that you've got? We've got 130 people. Everybody's making decisions every day, whether they're big decisions or little decisions. How does that layer up? And so having a real clear idea about who our customer is, whether you're an internal customer, an external customer, and how do you service them, that is critical. And then just having resilience. Like I think that it's not about making the right decision every time. It's definitely not. But it's like, okay, how are you going to learn from that? How do you go and make it better next time? And I think that people who want to go and be better themselves and make sure that they're going to be an absolute, like an expert in what they're doing. Like they've got to have the aspiration that I'm going to be, whatever you're doing, you've got to be an absolute, like whether you are or whether you're looking to become, I'm going to be the best version of myself that I can be so that I can go and add huge amounts of value.
Cool. Now I wanted to talk a little bit more about, I guess, fintech in general. You and I have kind of done quite a few, meetings, breakfasts, etc., with UK DIT. I know that you've always had that international view for steak as well. We're in a bit of a very different landscape now. Probably, for a lot of people, they won't have experienced this type of landscape before. What's your general sense as to kind of where Australia's at now in terms of fintech and where the industry's at, kind of generally, and what you see kind of this next 12 months as playing out?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it is an interesting time. I mean, it's a challenging time across the board. I think this is not just unique to Australia, by the way. So this is, we're seeing this in UK, we're seeing this in New Zealand, we're seeing this in US from partners as well. And in a way, Australia is to some extent somewhat protected as well from a lot of what's happening globally. But what do I see going on? I think that there's going to be I think there's going to continue to be pretty tough out there for a period of time. I think that companies are going to have to probably specialize a bit more. Their growth aspirations are going to be pared back, which they already have been to some extent. But you really need to focus on what's the problem you're trying to solve for the customer. And I think that's really where the focus needs to be. I think if you're looking to go and get significant amount of capital, I think businesses that have been running at material losses without strong balance sheets are going to continue to struggle for a period of time. We're seeing, it's tough to go and raise capital out there. It's becoming even tougher, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think that will continue, but quality businesses will continue to be able to survive. And I don't necessarily think it's a reflection of the quality underlying business about their ability to raise capital as well as much about what's happening to valuations and what's happening with just expectations from the market around performance. and just things are just, there's going to be a higher bar, I think.
Yeah.
Just generally, and that's just going to flow through.
Yeah. And what does the next 12 months look like for Stake?
So, so the next 12 months, I think, first of all, it's about continuing to provide like an exceptional current offering of our brokerage platform. So how do we go and make sure that we're best in class, seamless and immersive experience for customers across our US and our ASX products? So you'll continue to see improved features, functionality across those core products. So we're not going to settle to be like, cool, we've launched our products, we're moving on. It's very much about continual iteration and improvement. We've recently launched instant deposits in our platform, so people, whether you're trading in the Aussie market or the US market, you can get access to your money straight away. Just one example, we're continuing to work through our, how do we provide that immersive experience across multiple markets through the business. So there's a number of things that we're working on there. So that is our number one focus, to be honest. Beyond that, we have announced that we'll be moving into crypto in due course. And that's still the case for people, again, to buy and sell coins through Stake. And so there's still going to be a great market for that. And we're making sure that we've got all of our, all the checks and balances we need to be able to support that, which is quite significant, and which we embrace all of that. So really, it's just about continuing to build that. And then what we're trying to do, as I mentioned, around some of the sort of products, securities that we allow people to access, we want to go and be able to go and expand that into, we're getting queries from customers a lot about how do I go and access, whether it's companies that are looking to raise money, whether it's, how do we go and open up the whole markets to our customer base. So that's just things that we're looking at. But as I said, the main focus is just around our Aussie and US.
Awesome. Well, Dan, it's been great to have you on, and thanks so much for sharing the story. It's just awesome sitting here with you, kind of just taking all of this in, right, and keep thinking back to. I think it's just amazing, right, to see what people can do with their lives by being brave enough to make a decision and kind of just follow through with it. It's so inspiring. So thanks so much for coming along. Where can people download the Stake app?
So you go to hellostake.com or go to the App Store and find us on the App Store under Stake.
Awesome. And if anybody's interested in joining Stake or interested in careers, where's the best place for them to head? Sure.
So the careers page on hellostake.com. We've got a number of roles that are open.
Awesome.
Especially across engineering and finance at the moment.
Cool.
And so, I'd encourage people to go and have a
We'll give a shout out to that actually on our new show that comes out on Mondays as well, where we just want to get as much positive news out there, and anybody that's hiring, we'll give them a plug. So
perfect.
Yeah. Well, Dan, thanks very much for joining me, and thanks for sharing the Stake story.
Thanks for having me.
And you can connect with me, Dexter Cousins, on LinkedIn and Twitter. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, remember to press follow on your favorite podcast player, and please consider leaving us a review. It really does help me in bringing in great guests and help fintech fans like you discover the show. Fintech Chatter is presented by Tier 1 People, leaders in fintech executive search. We'll help you launch, scale, and innovate by delivering world-class talent. And you can find out more at tier1people.com. Until the next episode, stay safe